love. Today we're talking about Parsha BeShelach. It's an incredible Parsha, but to say the least. I'm going to talk about it in multiple levels. But at a very basic level, we are talking about faith. An incredible faith people had to have to be able to follow the pillar of light, fire, and the cloud of glory, and Moses, and to walk through the Sea of Reeds. But faith isn't really enough. Okay? There's another piece to it, because faith leads to, in this case, teshuva. Faith leads to us doing actions that purify us and uplift us spiritually, and that's the key. Faith alone is good; it's very, very important. But we see it leads to it. And in this case, for example, we start with the crossing of the Sea of Reeds. Okay, now that's one level, right? They had the faith to cross over, the sea opens. That's pretty big. But there's a little bit more to it. When we see the evolution of consciousness, and we see what we call Gigol energies, which is what we call reincarnation, from the time of Adam, souls were created that need to be purified. And the first major purification was the flood. The flood was the one big mikvah, one big purification, hot, cold water, all kinds of things happened. The next purification of this soul group is what I'm talking about. This core was the Tower of Babel. Okay. The next purification of this soul group again, Sodom and Gomorrah. And the next purification was the 210 years in slavery. So these are things that are going on, and so these aren't just having a bad time, it is major soul group purification. And now, this final purification, leaving Egypt, walking through the Sea of Reeds, is the final purification before people are able to receive the Torah. So now we understand there's a much bigger picture, and there's the evolution of the soul. And this group had to go through all these purifications before they could receive the Torah. So now we have a context of understanding. Now, in this process, okay, they had to have faith to have this happen, and that faith lead to redemption, which are what we also call spiritual purifications. And so, in BeShelach, it talks about the people left arm, and an arm goes to Hamesh, goes to the number 5. There are different levels of interpreting it. Okay. A deeper level of understanding it is 5. Hamesh is the 5 levels of soul. And what we see is for Am Israel to go to the next soul evolution level, which is really what we're talking about here, the lower 4 levels of the soul needed to be purified, so the 5th level, the Yehida, could then jump to the next level, which is really what we're talking about. That's where the number 5 is so important, because we have the 5 levels of the soul. So that's a key understanding of the kind of mystical numbers. They left the arm, they have the 5 levels of soul, and so forth. Okay. Now, they were also following the cloud of glory, Anan HaKavod, as well as the pillar of fire, Ha'ash. So what were they really doing? What's really going on here is that they were following the light of God. That's what they were doing. And that light of God, still outside, this is really important to understand, still outside of them, which is where miracles take you, has yet to go inside. So they're following that, and Elohim is leading the cloud and the pillar and the angels in there too. But the point is, they're following this outer light. In the transformation, and it's said in the Messianic age, which is what I'm talking about, is that they will be following not Elohim, but Yud-Keh-Vav-Keh. And that is really key to understand who and what level we're following, because there is an evolution of consciousness. And I love what King David says. This is his own experience, of course, in Psalm 139. And he says, as he's talking about this, following the Tetragrammaton, okay, though he may not have consciously said that, the light be night about thee. Even the darkness is not dark for thee, but the night shines like the day. The darkness and light are both alike to thee. And that's a very heavy teaching. This is an enlightenment teaching. This is, to me, this is a sign that he's really liberated and enlightened, because the light is now inside of him. He's not following the light, it's within him. Very, very good. I'm going to share a poem that actually is in my book, Torah is a Guide to Enlightenment, which is my poem of my experience. The end, and which speaks exactly to this, what I'm talking about. Incredible light energy of that. That's the title of the poem. Half asleep and fully awake, the energetic body, filled with indescribable blazing light, explodes through the total being with a delectable fullness of joy, of peace, of contentment, of love, occurring without reason or cause. Non-causal is the key. The natural human state in the Messianic time. But it's happening to some of us as we wake up. Existing as the matrix of beingness within, as phenomena and prior. In the silence of the night, in the silence of meditation, rises like 1,000 blazing suns and settles down, but never sets in the activity of the day. It is always background and often foreground to an underlying matrix of ecstatic, non-causal well-being, peace, love, beauty, contentment, and joy. Emanating 24/7, residing as the infinite light of the divine presence, which is exactly what I'm talking about. That in the Messianic time we will be led by that inner light of Yud-Keh-Vav-Keh. That's what King David's writing about. Uplifting this one as the one in every moment of every action. Blazing forth as the nothing of awareness. In the silence of the divine presence, in the stillness of the mind and body, as the day unfolds throughout the night. Half asleep and fully awake. The ecstasy of the divine self is beyond cause, comprehension, and I am. It is Yah's permanent grace to everyone. Incredible light energy of that. The light of I am, that is all that ever was and will be. This is what we're talking about. This is what they're talking about in the Messianic time. It is the light of enlightenment. It's the inner light. Now, there's outer light there, but it's the inner light that people actually didn't have at that time. So it's important to understand there is an evolution of consciousness. Now, I can't speak for Moshe, okay, but I'm talking about what was happening. People were following the cloud of glory and the pillar of light. But there wasn't the inner light. King David is the first reference I have to that in this enlightenment tradition that we're talking about. So, okay, now that's kind of starters. Okay, we're not just talking redemption, but we're talking about following the light. First externally, and then internally. Wow. Okay, so this is part of this enlightenment tradition. Now, as I tell the story, because we'll kind of get some more insights in the bigger picture, but that's kind of the deeper picture of what we're going on. It's very much the deeper picture. So it starts, they leave, and and by an act of faith, Hashem, God takes them back so they're vulnerable to the Egyptians. And so they settle right in front of the last standing idol of the Egyptians. Well, this is like a perfect setting. The Egyptians come roaring down after them. The pillar of light and the cloud of light stands between them and the Egyptians. It's really quite a scene. Okay? People are freaking out because they don't have that. They haven't internalized the truth. Moses said, "Hey, help." And God says, "What do you mean, help? You have it all. I already gave it to you. Take your staff, say the 72 names." Now let's talk about the 72 names. The 72 is the number of Hased, loving kindness. It's also the number of Teshuvah. So now it starts to come together that this act of entering the Sea of Reeds is a huge Teshuvah, redemption. Wow. Okay. So Moses says the 72 names, which incidentally is first introduced in this parsha. It's the first time they introduced. Okay. And as I say, it's compassion, it's sad, it's loving kindness. And the Sea of Reeds does as well. Now what? Nachmanson, who is related to Moshe because his sister is married to Aaron, okay? And from the tribe of Yehuda, goes in as a total act of faith, but faith with action, this is key, action, and when it gets up to his nose, it splits. Incredible. I mean, but it tells us we got to go beyond faith. We have to have action in the story. Okay, now the sea splits. People are doing their final redemption, not final, before receiving the Torah. Okay, it's the big redemption. And they pass through. Now, Pharaoh and his troops are not paying attention, which happens to so many people along the spiritual path. They're given warnings. This isn't going to be a good scene. They start charging through. Their wheels are falling off. This is happening. It's clear something very strange is going on, but they can't stop themselves. They're so locked in to their hatefulness and the need for revenge that they can't stop. And that they're now taken in, and the sea covers them up. Wow. and this superpower is destroyed. And it's never recovered. Egypt has never recovered from this event. After this is said and done, we have the Song by the Sea, which is one of 10 songs, holy songs to be said. 9 have been said. One other song that happens to this group is the Song of the Well, which just happens a little bit near the end. So they sing the Song of the Sea, led by Miriam, and the woman, and the dancing, and the singing, and there's a nice verse, Hashem is my strength and song. And they're acknowledging, which is the transition of consciousness here, that when we really understand that our strength and our power and ultimately the music of our life is the dance of Hashem within us, then we start to wake up a little bit. So they're giving a hint where this transition has to happen to go more inside. Quite a celebration. Although in the oral traditions pointed out that Hashem's not very happy because he points out the Egyptians are his people too. This is not the first choice, but it was what the result of their actions, of the Egyptians, of the Pharaoh and his soldiers. Next, they march for 3 days, and they get bitter, and they get dry, and actually get a lot of pretty thirsty because there's no water. So it's not that easy to go for 3 days without food and water. In the Sundance, we do 4 days without food and water. We've gone longer, but it's not easy. So, and people are like thirsty because they're thinking that way too. And so when they get to the Lake of Merar, it's bitter. The Baal Shem Tov says, suggesting maybe that reflects the bitter thoughts. So Moshe is led to a particular tree by Hashem and says, throw it in, and the water turns sweet. Now there's symbolism of the tree, and we are about ready to do BeShelach. And the symbolism is the tree represents the tree of life, which is liberation consciousness. At another level, the tree represents the Torah. So when the Torah is put in to the sea of unbalanced, bitter consciousness, it wakes people up and brings sweetness to light. It's a very deep symbolism of tree and tree of life, and how that changes it. So the bitterness of life with Torah gets transformed to sweetness. So again, the deeper teaching is when we live the way of God, and this is what's said afterwards. If you follow my ways, you're not going to get any of the diseases of the Egyptians. And truly, if we follow the ways of the Torah, we look at the whole Bereshit, Genesis 1:29, we're given a diet. And the diet really is very simple. It's a plant-based diet. Fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. Nothing complicated, and it's raw. Interesting. So we're going to get to what Hashem gives people. So that's a really important teaching. And it is a teaching is that God is our source, but the light and the divine within the food is also given to us as part of our sustenance. Well, the people are having trouble when we don't have any food because they run out of food that they took from Egypt, and what to do. And there's more to the story, but to make it short and to the point in this parsha, they're given the manna. The manna is the food of God. It comes from the heavens, falls, and so it's a very clear message that food indeed is a love note from God. That couldn't be any clearer. And it's sustenance. So it's a message of how to relate to our food. Now, that love note, that frequency, does not really get released until we bless the food and we honor it as a love note from God. And in this tradition, we bless before and we bless afterwards. So now we have a whole way of understanding nutrition, which I would call spiritual nutrition, which is to see food as a love note from God. The manna is the first real teaching of that in post walking through the series. And people are not given that. And those that don't understand want more, and that's in a later parsha. They want some meat, but that's really not the point. The point is the manna is the food given to us by Hashem, and is the light of God. And we activate it when we bless it. That's the key point that I'm making. So now it goes on, and after they drink, then they go on to the next place where there's 70 palm trees. And there's 12 ponds, and what that is about is that's the taste of the Torah. Okay, because that's the 12 tribes, and the 70 elders and the 70 people who came down with Yaakov. So they taste that, and then they go off again, and here they run out of water again. And there's some lack of faith along the way. Moshe is forced to hit the rock with his staff and create it. Now, there's one very important sequence in here, which is the battle of Amalek. And this is a group that descended from Esau. I think Amalek was a grandson of Esau. And they go after Israel. They represent really the dark side. And what's happening is that they're strong, they're powerful, and there's a battle. And Moshe is with the staff. When he holds the staff up, the Israel is winning, and they're led by Yehoshua. Okay, he lowers it down, and I'm not clear. So this is back and forth. And finally, they prop his hands up, and they win. Now, there's a very important message here. Is that Hashem is saying it isn't complete. And that's part of the message when they do the dance at the sea afterward. They use the word Yah, which is just the first two letters of the name. It isn't complete until Amalek is destroyed from the earth. And only then will the throne of glory be complete and activated, which will happen in the Messianic time. But it also lays out the continual battle with the struggle of darkness within ourselves as well as without ourselves. And that struggle goes on today. And King Saul had an opportunity to wipe out Amalek, and he didn't, his ego got in the way. Okay? And then that battle from Amalek comes into what we're coming into after Tu B'Shvat is Purim, and where Haman is defeated and his 10 sons. And the battle continues, and Hitler saw themselves as Haman with his 10 henchmen around him. They clearly understood what they're doing. That's Amalek. Battle has not gone away, it continues. And our task is to understand that as a battle, not just external, that would be too simple, but really internal. So even though we're victorious, even though there's transformations going on at many levels in this journey through the desert, because at every level there's more and more redemption, there's still this lingering with Amalek that the battle isn't over and really won't be over until the end times. So, where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with all of us have our sea of reeds to pass through. All of us have our bitter waters that we need to face. And we make choices. And my blessing to everyone, okay, is that we have the courage, the faith, to take the action to pass through our own sea of reeds and to transform the bitter waters of life into the sweetness. Shalom, shalom, shalom.